I've spent years helping hundreds of men and women transform their bodies, and I keep seeing the same pattern over and over again. If you don't know who I am, I'm Brooks Coleman, and I've helped hundreds of people transform their bodies with sustainable nutrition and training. Someone starts at 30% body fat, motivated to change, but they get quickly overwhelmed with all the conflicting information out there. Just eat less and move more, or you need to do keto, or you can't eat after 7 p.m. You've got to do fasted cardio. Fasted cardio is terrible. And the worst part, none of this advice addresses the real reason you're struggling with your weight. In this video, I'm going to share exactly what I would do if I was starting out at 30% body fat, based on helping hundreds of people transform their bodies and keep the weight off for good. Like Alicia, who lost 25 pounds while simultaneously making gains in the gym on a caloric deficit, or Liz, who at 64 finally found a program that worked for her after nothing had in the past. Now look, this isn't going to be your typical weight loss advice. I'm going to show you the exact framework that's helped our clients lose 20, 30, 50 pounds or more while building lean muscle and actually enjoying the process. So let's break down exactly what works for sustainable fat loss. All right, first off, before we even get into the nutrition and the training, which is important, we have to address the elephant in the room, which is your mindset. And everybody loves to talk about mindset, especially on the internet. But the truth is, there are a couple key factors that you can put into play before you get to this stuff that will tremendously transform the way you're thinking about the entire journey so that you actually stick with it. Because what we do know is a lot of things can work, but the most important part is actually sticking with whatever it is you choose for the long haul. Now, my favorite way to go about this is super simple. It's called The Gap and the Gain. Now, this is a book, but I'm going to explain it to you in just a couple minutes. So what you're going to do is we're all constantly focused on where we are and where we want to be in the future. And this is always a moving target because anytime we make progress with something, we're only going to be looking ahead at the next target in the future. So instead of looking at the gap from where you want to be, throughout this entire process, you need to start looking at the gain from where you've been in the past. What we do is instead of measuring our progress on where we want to be in the future, we start measuring progress on where we've came from so that we're always training our brain to recognize what we are doing instead of what we aren't doing. Now, I know this is cliche or a platitude you probably see online all the time, progress over perfection. But what you can do is actually start training your mind moment to moment throughout your life to start recognizing the gain instead of the gap. So here's what you're going to do. Every single night before you go to bed, you are going to recognize 3 things that you did do that day, no matter how small they are. I know this may seem silly, but slowly but surely over time, you're going to start training your subconscious mind to start recognizing the good, because momentum is everything when it comes to your diet and your training. So quick example, say you're aiming for 3 workouts per week and you only got 2 last week. Normally you'd be looking, I fell 1 short, but what you're gonna start doing is every time you catch your mind measuring from the standard of where you wanna be in the future, you need to turn backwards and recognize what you did do, which is 2 workouts instead of 0. This is progress, and this is going to keep the ball rolling for the long haul. All right, so now that we've got our base mindset in play, let's set the foundation for the fat loss to come. We are going to get after this with 2 primary things. First and foremost is going to be a general step count. Now, I know you're probably used to going after cardio or HIIT workouts or just crushing yourself in the gym all week. But as a busy parent or professional, the best thing you can do is focus on your overall steps to get moving throughout the day, because it's more flexible, it's very easy to adjust, you can piece it together no matter where you're at, and it's very low impact so you don't fall into this all or nothing mindset when it comes to getting into the actual gym and getting a workout done. This is the most important thing you can do for momentum and energy when it comes to sticking with a diet or nutrition plan. A proper circadian rhythm is going to keep you energized when you're supposed to be energized, sleeping when you're supposed to be sleeping, improve your digestion, improve your hormones, and honestly, every single system of your body. So pairing with that step count, which I would recommend a minimum of 8,000 per day, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we get outside for at least 10 minutes within an hour of waking up every single morning. The biggest signal to your circadian rhythm is going to be your light environment. So that sunlight, and particularly time outside for 10 minutes in the morning, is going to be the strongest driver of that circadian rhythm to make sure we're setting you up with as much momentum and energy as possible to execute on your nutrition and your training. If this is off point, it's going to make everything else like playing on hard mode, and it's just going to give you the energy so that you can actually crush what's to come. So the second piece with that sunrise is going to be blocking blue light after sunset at night. So what I want you to do is get a cheap pair of blue light blocking glasses and throw those on at least 2 hours before bed, preferably right when the sun goes down. This is going to offset the negative impacts of your screens, your phone, your TV, your household lights that have a lot of blue light in them. And what this does is basically send a signal to your brain that it's noon, so that cortisol should be high and melatonin should be low. But as I'm sure you know, if you want to sleep well, you're going to need low cortisol and higher melatonin. And if we're blocking that with our screens, it's going to make it much harder to fall asleep, stay asleep. But even if you're falling asleep, it makes your sleep much worse because that melatonin is actually acting as an antioxidant and doing a bunch of cleanup around your cells. So even if you're falling asleep okay, we need to eliminate that blue light after dark. And the best way to do this is just get some red or orange glasses that you can put on so you can still use your screens if you want with your family. And this is going to have you sleeping much deeper. Even if you don't sleep more, you'll be feeling a lot better and it'll be much easier to execute on everything here. All right, let's get to the fun stuff. First and foremost, we have our nutrition side of things. I am a big believer in adding more of the good stuff before we try to eliminate any of the quote unquote bad stuff out there, because if all you do is focus on how something's poisonous for you, it's going to make it way harder. And if we focus on adding more of the good stuff first, we can actually get you a lot more full and bring that hunger down. So it's just a lot easier to eat less of that bad stuff later on anyways. So speaking of good stuff, the first thing we're going to focus on is your protein intake. I'm sure you've heard this everywhere, but is seriously underrated for not only keeping you full, but also sending the signals to your body to keep muscle mass and lose fat mass so that the highest percentage of your weight loss is coming from fat loss, not muscle loss. This makes a massive difference, and it makes it a lot easier to keep to your plan throughout the day. So what I want you to do is take your body weight and multiply it by 0.7. This is going to be your goal for your protein intake throughout the day. So if you're 200 pounds, we're going to be aiming for a bare minimum of 140 grams of protein. This is the most important factor when it comes to your nutrition. To pair with that, we're going to go after fiber intake, and this is going to be a proxy for getting more whole foods or foods without a label. Like think of fruits, vegetables, lean meats, things like that that don't have a bunch of other things in them. These are going to keep you way more full and make it way easier to keep your calories down so that you're full and you're losing weight at the same time. Your target here is going to be 25 grams of fiber for women and 35 grams of fiber for men every single day. This can be a mix of fruit, vegetables, whole grains, but make sure you're getting that every single day and not getting it from some fiber supplement. Ideally, over time, we're getting this from whole foods throughout our day because that's naturally going to lead you to filling up on foods that are great for you. So with our protein and our fiber down, we are now going to pay attention to calories. Yes, I'm sure you've heard calorie deficit is all that matters. Not really, but it is important, and it's what's going to lead to weight loss. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a calorie tracker. I have a free one. I will link it below so you can snag that. And we're going to track and go into a calorie deficit. Now, since we have your steps up, since we have the protein up, since we have the fiber up, this is not going to be as low of calories as you would normally need because we're supporting your metabolism elsewhere. So snag that calorie tracker, and that's going to be a great starting point for starting to track your overall calories, which is the key driver of moving that scale down. Now, I wouldn't worry too much about food timing. If you're hitting your total protein, your total calories, and your total fiber throughout the day, you can get away with a lot of variance in when you're eating your meals, what those meals consist of, as long as you're hitting those targets. So that is the bare minimum to hit those. If it were me, here's what I would do. I would do 3 meals a day without snacking. You know, if we try to do 5-6 meals a day, which by the way doesn't make fat loss any better, it's about your total intake. If we try to do that, all of a sudden you're just having to plan a ton. If we go with 3 full decent sized meals, it's going to keep you a lot more full and allow you to eat a lot more food at those meals to make sure you're very satisfied and it holds you over until the next meal. On top of that, I would try to keep those meal times consistent. So remember what I mentioned about your circadian rhythm earlier? The consistency of the timing of your meals is very, very important for that rhythm. So try to eat within an hour of the same time each day for each of your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And this is really going to help keep that circadian rhythm intact. And another thing to do is just avoid eating a few hours before bedtime. Not because these calories are extra fattening compared to a calorie earlier in the day, but precisely because it's going to disrupt your sleep. And if we can cut that off earlier, it's going to allow you to sleep deeper, improve energy, and make it easier to follow the next day. Now, I know you might be scarred from tracking your food in the past, but trust me, this is the best way to learn why some foods are better than others, create awareness, get you results, and do it much quicker. You do not have to track forever, but it is so valuable. And if you do this, especially with the protein and the fiber on point, it's going to be a way better experience than you've ever had in the past because you're not going to have to cut those calories as low, especially with the steps and the muscle mass we're going to be building, so that you can do this sustainably and keep it off. Now, if you run into a situation where you're not able to estimate those numbers for your meals, you're out to eat or something like that, we're going to use the Power Plate method. Now, this is a super easy way to just set up a meal, whether you're at home or at a restaurant, but all we're going to do is we're going to divide that plate into quarters. So we're going to use a quarter of that plate for lean protein. We're going to use a quarter of that plate for complex carbohydrates like whole grains or potatoes or rice. And we're going to use 2/4 or half the plate for starchy vegetables. So think green veggies, something like Brussels sprouts or green beans or salad or something like that. And that's generally going to be a great way to set up a plate when you're out to dinner and you can't be tracking directly. Okay, so now we've covered the nutrition, we've covered our foundation, let's get to the training. This is where so many people are so misled, thinking they need to just live in the gym every single day. But the truth is the gym isn't for burning calories, it's for building muscle. And the key reason for that is because if we're cutting our calories and creating a caloric deficit without strength training, our body's not going to know whether to lose muscle or fat. And muscle is much more metabolically expensive than fat tissue. So if you don't send a reason for it to keep that muscle, it's going to lose the muscle first because it wants to survive. It wants to maintain homeostasis. And that is the toughest tissue to keep around, so it's going to ditch it right away. So we need to send the signal to keep that muscle around so that we maximize fat loss throughout the process and also protect our metabolism. And then we stay burning a lot more calories instead of losing muscle and looking worse as time goes on instead of better. Now, the good news is here, you only need about 3 days per week to make a massive difference and even gain some muscle while you lose fat. This is going to be anywhere from 5 reps to 30 reps on each exercise for 2 to 3 sets. And the most important thing is that you're pushing yourself. So we want to keep these exercises consistent week over week and progress them so that we're overloading our muscles every week and making it harder on ourselves to send that signal to grow that muscle tissue. So keep those the same for 4 to 6 weeks at a time. Make sure you're tracking your numbers. And this is going to be a bit more quote unquote bodybuilding style training, not like super high endurance based, breathing heavy, sweating a ton. You're going to be really focusing on getting to failure in the target muscle so that we're sending the right signals here. If you want a beginner strength training program, I'll link ours below so that you can check it out. And this is one you could run for a few months really as you progress your training. This can be done at home or at the gym. Now I know that sounds crazy, but just 3 days a week for 30 to 40 minutes lifting weights in the gym or at home paired with the 8,000 steps a day is going to be more than enough if you're on top of your nutrition to get the scale moving and losing fat along the way. So if you have more time on top of the 8,000 steps per day, on top of your 3 days a week lifting weights, you have a few different options. You could just take your steps higher every single day. Get outside, enjoy that time walking, or we could add some cardio in. So cardio is honestly pretty overrated for losing fat, but it's tremendous for brain health, heart health, and lung health. So what I would do is aim to find an exercise you like, whether it's walking on an incline, whether it's a Stairmaster, whether it's a group class, and include that on your off days from your lifting sessions. You could go after some zone 2 or do some high intensity interval training, but make sure you have your sleep, your steps, and your strength training on point, and add that in on top of that. And that's going to help you lose fat at a higher number of calories because you will be burning more calories. Just never put it ahead of your strength training. Okay, so let's take this home with our sustainability factors. Everybody gets all motivated and goes and crushes it for a little bit, and inevitably they fall off. And the biggest thing I see is the all or nothing mindset. You think that you have to be doing all these things, or you might as well do none of it. And quite honestly, this is pretty easy to fix. And this is something that pairs really nicely with the gap and the gain mindset we went over earlier. So here's what you're going to do. You are going to do some good, better, and best planning. So basically just a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. So let's say your plan A is 8,000 steps a day, 3 strength training workouts per week, and 1,600 calories a day, and 140 grams of protein. So we have 4 things there. That's our best day. Most people just have that and then they say screw it, and if they can't get all of it done, they just don't do anything that day, and this is what gets us into a rut. So let's adjust down for a plan B. That might look like, okay, we're not going to make the gym today, but that's okay because we're just going for 3 days a week. And maybe, we're constrained on time. So I'm still going to track my food. I'm going to go for the calorie target. I'm going to go for the protein target, but I'm just going to do 6,000 steps a day instead of the 8,000. So that's my plan B. Now, my plan C, maybe stuff really hit the fan and I'm not able to track my calories. But I am going to make sure that I just get 3 well-rounded protein meals in my day, and I'm going to go for a 20-minute walk at some point in my day. That's my bare minimum. So that plan C should be the absolute bare minimum that you can do on your worst of days. And then instead of trying to get these A+ days to A++ days, we can really focus on taking our worst days and improving them little by little so that we're really limiting the damage. And as we pair that with our gap and the gain mindset, we can look backwards instead of forwards and continue to maintain that positive outlook on the progress we're making. Now, of course, these can be different for everyone. Maybe your plan A is like an hour of strength training, 15,000 steps, 30 minutes of cardio, tracking all your macros. That's okay. Adjust this to what makes sense for you. Just make sure you have a game plan for the worst of days so that you're able to get it done no matter what. And you slowly start to show yourself that you are succeeding and can be successful. And it's going to be night and day for your momentum overall. Now, you have the exact framework I would use if I was starting at 30% body fat. But here's the thing, knowing what to do is only half the battle. The real challenge, actually implementing this yourself according to your lifestyle. You could try to piece this all together yourself, spend months figuring out your calories, waste time with workouts that don't work, deal with the frustration of plateaus alone, or you could jump on a free health audit with our team where we will review your current lifestyle and habits, take a look at where you'd like to get to and maintain for life, uncover the primary bottlenecks limiting your progress, and develop an action plan that will get you results ASAP. Click the link in the description to book your free health audit. And look, this isn't for everyone, but if you're serious about transforming your body and you want expert guidance to make it happen, book your call now. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more evidence-based health advice, and I'll see you in the next video.